Wait, do you drink coffee?
No.
No.
You don't drink coffee, so
No.
your only source of caffeine
It's
is
Sunkist.
Sunkist.
And it doesn't even have that much. Like Mountain Dew has like 10 times more.
Yeah, but when you don't drink any caffeine at all, that's decent.
This CES 2020 coverage is brought to you by Corsair, Delgado Gaming, Craft Computing, Bite My Bits, and this guy.
Jesus Christ.
So we're here in my, mansion suite here to not talk about what's at CES, but what we actually use to make content at CES. Because we just got done doing the Talking Heads live stream for Craft Computing's channel, which my first time being a part of it, pretty good experience. But it was also my first time, live streaming from a studio, and I kind of wanted to show off it wasn't the setup that I made. It was actually Jeff behind the camera who set this up. But I like seeing, these mobile and adaptive streaming setups, and I thought it would be really cool to share because not intentionally, but my focus is very much always on, desktop game streaming. And I want to show the other side of the coin and things like that. So we're going to be covering his camera rig to go because it's my first time seeing the ZCAM E2, and I've had so many questions about it, and they promised me a review unit and then said no afterwards. And we're going to be covering a product that I have on a shelf that I've never talked about, but is actually super handy for this workflow, and just walk through how we were able to live stream from my hotel room with, apparently, according to a couple viewers, really high quality audio, really crappy video because, bitrate, but turned out pretty well, and I just wanted to show it off. So we're going to flip around here, and we're just going to seamless transition.
Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone.
We're leaving.
As always, I'm Jeff. I am Jeff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do this thing.
Yeah. All right, so what do we have here on our... This looks very barren without all of our stuff now. But,
It does.
So, walk us through what we have set up here.
All right, this is the streaming rig that I take with me when I want to do live streaming. And my streaming is simply video. I don't do any game streaming. I don't do any kind of screen capture or gaming, anything like that.
Boring.
Yeah, mine is simply me talking to a camera. So here's what I use. So obviously I have my laptop, and honestly this isn't even the laptop that I would choose to do streaming on. This is a Dell Inspiron 7535, I think. It's a Ryzen 2500U, which is pretty good for mobile video editing, not so great for streaming because there's no NVENC in this. There's no hardware encoding on it, so it's all software at this point, which is why we kind of struggle with bit rates on the road. I will be addressing this very shortly, so if you're going to set up something like this, I'd recommend something with like a GTX 1050 or a 1650 mobile card, something that with NVENC in it.
Asus, hit this man up.
Asus, talk to me. All right. Kind of the brains of my audio setup here are the Sound Blaster K3 Plus. This is a phenomenal little 2-channel mixer. It does have 2 XLR inputs with phantom power and individual gain controls, as well as 2 headphone outputs with individual volume levels. So each host on the show can have their own headphone and their own mix in their ear. So they're able to hear what they need to hear, even in a noisy environment. I've shot with this live from a bar where I couldn't hear my co-host at all sitting right next to me. We did a perfectly clear live stream, and it was absolutely wonderful.
It's kind of like the Go XLR before the Go XLR, and more built for like two people setups.
Right. Yeah, and it's been wonderful in my setup. And in fact, this is what you'll hear on most of my weekly live streams. This is what I use in studio as well.
Sweet.
Next up are the microphones that I chose. These are the Samsung CO2s. These are about $89 or so for a pair off of Amazon, and they work wonderfully. They're little pencil microphones. I don't remember if they're condensers or if they're dynamic. I honestly don't remember at this point.
I don't think they qualify as either. Yeah. They're like a weird, because they are just cardioid microphones. Right. I don't think they actually count as either. This is actually what Gerald Undone has been using, at least up to recently, for his, at his desk aerial shots as well. They do a pretty good job.
They do show a super cardioid pattern on the front, so that they are kind of like, this weird middle ground hybrid. But they are super compact. They fit in this little travel box right here, which makes them very, very easy to pack around.
And we just had 2 of them kind of positioned here.
Yep.
For our 4-person show.
Yep, just kind of positioned them so it's pointing kind of between each pair of people.
So this is roughly what the camera saw.
Yep. And as long as you're looking pretty much straight forward, the audio is going to pick you up. These are just some little tabletop Amazon stands I picked up. I think I paid $10 for the pair of them. And again, they fold up nice and small and fit into my travel bag.
And for video.
And for video, well, we got the Elgato Cam Link. You know, that's what we're piping into the laptop here.
Which we run into some issues that I've talked about before. We're not going to name specifically here due to, sponsorship obligations, but some issues because it is a Gen 1, right?
Yes.
And that was mostly fixed in Gen 2.
Yep.
The 4K. But, yeah. Understandable annoyance. But we got it fixed. It was fine.
Moving on over here. Moving on to my new baby. Now, this is what we use for the live stream tonight. This is my ZCAM E2, and this has been kind of a labor of love over the last probably 3 months or so. I started putting this kit together around October. The reason I settled on the ZCAM E2... Settled. It's determined I wanted to buy. Is that better?
Yeah.
Determined I wanted to buy this...
Plebeian cinema camera.
Yeah, just this pathetic $2,000 camera body you see before you.
Why aren't you bringing an Ari Alexa?
Right. The reason I determined I wanted to buy the ZCAM E2 was honestly to function primarily as a main studio camera, but then also to be a run-and-gun camera for events like CES. I cover probably about 2 or 3 of these per year, and having a run-and-gun solution that's not, terrible is honestly pretty advantageous. What makes this such a great option for a run-and-gun camera is actually the lightweightedness of it. The camera you're holding is not that much lighter weight than this one is. And I have this one fully kitted out with a couple of side handles and this giant NPF battery on the rear. I can shoot for about 3 hours at a time on a single battery. My battery does connect to the camera as well as send a 12 volt up to my Portkey screen. And we shot all day on Tuesday. We didn't drain the battery dead until we got back and shot some additional A-roll here, but the camera was probably on for a solid 3 hours. Next up is the lack of a need for an external recorder. This records in ProRes. It records in, what I'm recording at here is ProRes 422 proxy, but it does record all the way up to ProRes HQ. And the bit rates you get out of this and the quality you get out of this camera is absolutely fantastic for the money, without the need to buy, an Atomos Ninja on top or anything like that. So I could spend $200 on my monitor and put all of the money into my camera body itself.
So I've actually been super stoked about the ZCAM series. It is a wonderful little cinema camera. It is way smaller than I expected. Those pictures didn't really do it to scale. It is, in at least one dimension, smaller than my A7S II I'm holding right now, which, coming from my Ursa, is just like... it's just pretty bonkers. And the footage out of it, I did shoot one of my videos on it, the one where we were at the bar, is really freaking sharp, even in proxy. I've never actually shot in proxy before. I am, for a running gun rig, if you're doing manual focus, I am beyond impressed.
Yeah. There are disadvantages to this as a run-and-gun rig. As you mentioned, it is manual focus only. I am using a speed booster with some EF mount lenses. I do have a Panasonic 14-140 that I brought with me for the show as kind of like an ultra zoom, all-in-one camera with image stabilization. There is technically autofocus on this. There's no autofocus on this body.
Yeah, they've been working on some AI computational autofocus tracking and stuff, but I can't tell if they've ever tried actually putting it in the camera yet. They just keep showing the video, because I'm in their Facebook group where they show all the development behind the scenes, and they keep showing demos of this autofocus, but then it never seems like it's actually put in the camera. I don't.
Right. I can get this to autofocus sometimes with a native micro Four Thirds lens, but I have come to rely solely on manual focus for this kit. For this kit, I brought 2 lenses with me. I brought a Tamron 10-24 for some ultra wide shots, which we did use a couple of times when the booths got a little bit tight. My main walk around lens is a Tamron 17-50 f2.8 image stabilized lens. And between those 2 lenses, it's a nice lightweight camera kit. I've been carrying a Low Pro 150 little tiny bag just to carry extra batteries and my extra lens. And that's all I have to carry on with me is this rig right here and that bag.
You've just been filled in.
That's right.
I've been recording these videos with an AverMedia, it's called a live stream mic, but it's a very small shotgun mic, and it's actually been one of the best ones I've had. I've had the knockoff, the Movo knockoff of the Video Mic Go or whatever,
Yeah,
those
I've tried
little
that one
cheap
as
ones.
well.
I've never liked them. And this one, especially on my A6400, when I am right up on it, it sounds really freaking good. So I figured for what run and gun stuff I did, it was fine. And then I brought the Rode Wireless Go kit with my big O Sennheiser AVX lav mic attached to it. But then I turned around and plugged in the shotgun mic and tried to record a video with the lav mic and screwed up the audio. Whereas they have like a pretty complete audio solution going here.
And again, this audio solution was pretty inexpensive relatively. This whole rig is less than, I think, $3,200. Now, I say relatively because we're still talking about a full-fledged cinema camera that shoots 4K at 160, if you want to really push things. But
whereas
for
my rig, it's total of like $1,200.
Right. So, I mean, it is a fairly expensive rig. It's definitely not for the average hobbyist. But for the quality that you're getting out of this camera, $3,200 is a pretty attainable price point. But audio was something that I was really concerned with coming in, and I wanted to go with more of a lav mic rather than a shotgun mic. I ended up picking up this 2-channel Comica set. It bolts right up to the side of the top handle here. Means I can still hold onto the camera with one hand up here if I need to carry it around the show floor. And I have 2 separate lav mics, so 2 separate body packs that people can wear. So if I'm doing a solo shot, I've got a lav mic on me that I wear full time. If I'm doing an interview, I just hook the second person up to a lav, and they've got audio coming in here. You can choose on the receiver right here whether to do stereo or mono recording. So I can choose one channel per, or one side per channel, or combine them into a mono if I'm just speaking on my own. It has been a pretty fantastic kit. And the audio's been pretty great. There's been a couple issues with clipping here and there, especially when there's a lot of noise. I think the auto gain on the transmitters has been flaking out a little bit. I'll probably need to set that manually from now on. But beyond that, it's been very, very solid. And last but not least is actually the storage solution on here. This does take a CFast 2.0 card, which, as Mr. Vox knows, those are relatively expensive for the capacities that you get.
They're not relatively expensive. They're highway robbery. It's a SATA connection. You can get a 2 terabyte SATA SSD for the cost of like a 128 gig CFast card for the exact same connection with different pins.
They're relatively expensive. Anyway, the ZCAM offers a solution to record over USB-C to an SSD, much like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K and 6K do. In this case, the Tilt-A-Rig that I have has a mount built in for a Samsung T5 drive, so that is exactly the solution I have here. I picked up 2 500 gig drives for about $100 a piece, mounted them right up to the side with a USB-C cable that actually does lock into both spots. So nothing's going to come unplugged. Everything's powered off the single battery.
Oh yeah, talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I was super impressed. So
oh right,
that's a MPF battery. That's like the 950.
970.
970.
Yep.
Which I use for my LEDs and stuff, but I've never used for a real camera.
Right.
Oh, you did mention that it lasts like the entire show.
Yeah, it lasts like 3 hours.
Yeah. I'm just super impressed by that because every camera I have just blows through batteries.
So this camera this battery was a little bit interesting because you'll notice I've got the monitor plugged into the top. The battery has a DC out jack. It also has a USB jack on the bottom. So the Comica wireless receiver runs off AA batteries. It can also run off a micro USB. So if my batteries run out on there, I can just run a micro USB out the bottom of this battery as well.
Look how V-mount they're coming for you.
That's right. But,
and this is how Craft Computing does CES.
That's right. And again, I've been thrilled with the footage I've gotten out of this so far. I can't say it's worth my money yet, at least as far as CES coverage goes. But I have been using this camera in studio for the last couple of weeks now that I've moved into my new place and
making videos.
Finally making videos again, and it has been absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to actually stretch the legs on this thing.